In the bleachers at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, Linda Harrison observed her son Tyler as he prepared to complete the most rigorous military training program in the world. She sat calmly. Her appearance was akin to that of any other proud mother attending a beauty-est graduation. She was nervous, ecstatic, and struggling to suppress her tears as she observed her son graduate as a Navy SEAL. However, Commander James Rodriguez interrupted his speech in mid-sentence when he observed the faded tattoo on Linda's forearm during the ceremony. The medical insignia and unit identifiers were not your typical military tattoo. It belonged to Doc Harrison, the renowned Navy corpsman who had saved the lives of numerous SEALs and himself during the most bleak moments of the Iraq War. Hello, and thank you for visiting. Please inform me of the city from which you are viewing this remarkable Navy Cross veteran story in the comments section before we commence. Additionally, if you are of the opinion that narratives involving these unsung heroes should be heard, please click the subscribe icon to assist us in preserving these narratives. As families began to congregate for one of the Navy's most prestigious ceremonies, the morning sun cast long shadows across the grinder at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The day of Bud's graduation is the moment when a small number of individuals would be officially recognized as Navy SEALs. Having endured months of the most physically and mentally taxing training in the military, in the third row of the bleachers, Linda Harrison sat, clutching a small American flag and attempting to soothe her anxieties among the assembled family members. Linda, who was 48 years old, possessed the quiet strength and weathered hands of an individual who had labored diligently to achieve everything in life. She was attired in a straightforward blue dress and a cardigan that covered the majority of her arms, resembling any other proud mother who attended her son's commencement. However, Linda Harrison was not like any other mother. 20-year career as one of the Navy's most decorated combat nurses was concealed beneath her modest civilian appearance, whose service records would have been shocking to anyone who knew her solely as the single mother who had reared. Tyler Harrison, while working as a civilian nurse in San Diego, Tyler was unaware of the full extent of his mother's military service, which rendered this graduation all the more remarkable. He was aware that she was a Navy veteran who had served as a hospital corpsman. However, Linda had meticulously concealed the specifics of her combat deployments, her decorations, and her legendary reputation among SEAL teams from her son throughout his upbringing. Tyler Harrison, who is now 22 years old, was on the brink of joining one of the most elite military divisions in the world. He had endured the advanced combat courses, the underwater demolition training Hell Week, and all other trials that distinguish Navy SEALs from regular seamen. Today, only 23 of the 180 candidates in his original cohort were graduating. Linda contemplated the voyage that had led them to this moment as she observed her son standing in formation with his fellow graduates. Tyler had only known his father through photographs during his childhood. Tyler was 3 years old when Petty Officer First Class Michael Harrison was killed in action in Afghanistan. Linda had reared Tyler independently, working long hours as a civilian trauma nurse and maintaining a strict separation between her combat service and her role as a mother. Tyler had consistently been attracted to military service, as he was motivated by his mother's silent fortitude and his father's selflessness. Linda was concurrently proud and terrified when he informed her of his intention to pursue SEAL training. She was fully aware of the nature of SEAL operations. She comprehended the hazards, the physical demands, and the psychological burden that Tyler would encounter as a result of her years of service as the primary medical support for SEAL teams. However, she was also aware that Tyler had inherited the same moral fortitude and determination that had motivated both of his parents to serve in the military's most challenging positions. Linda endeavored to concentrate on the pride she experienced as she observed Tyler realize his aspiration at the commencement of the ceremony. However, she was unable to sever the recollections that this location evoked. Her home base between deployments was Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, where she trained with SEAL teams, which maintained her medical certifications, and prepared for missions that would transport her to some of the world's most dangerous combat zones. Between 2003 and 2012, Linda Doc Harrison, a hospital corpsman first class, participated in 4 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. While embedded with SEAL teams conducting direct action missions, reconnaissance operations, and counterterrorism raids, her medical skills were put to the test in the most challenging of circumstances. She was tasked with treating catastrophic wounds while under enemy fire, performing emergency surgery in field conditions, and making life-or-death decisions. With limited resources and unlimited time pressure, the Navy Cross Linda received for extraordinary heroism, its Purple Hearts for combat wounds, and over a dozen other decorations that acknowledged her medical expertise and courage under assault were all part of her service record. However, the SEAL community regarded her achievement as even more significant than the medals she had received. The unwavering trust and reverence of the warriors she had served with. Doc Harrison was a legend to SEALs who had served alongside her. She was the corpsman who had run through enemy fire to heal wounded teammates, who had performed miraculous medical interventions under impossible conditions, and who had never lost a patient that could have been saved. One of the most esteemed corpsmen of her generation, her reputation for personal courage and medical expertise had been widely disseminated throughout the SEAL community. However, Tyler was unaware of this information. To him, his mother was merely the woman who had worked double shifts to pay for his college, who had attended every football game and wrestling match, and who had supported his decision to pursue SEAL training despite her apparent apprehensions about his safety. Commander James Hawk Rodriguez assumed the podium to address the graduates and their families as the graduation ceremony commenced. Commander Rodriguez, a SEAL legend and veteran of numerous combat deployments, currently served as the commanding officer of the Fundamental Underwater Demolition SEAL Training Program. Commander Rodriguez initiated the proceedings, distinguished guests, families, and acquaintances. Today, we convene to honor the accomplishments of 23 exceptional young men who have successfully completed the most rigorous military training program in the world. Linda listened to the commander's recitation of the SEAL warrior ethos, sacrifice, and dedication. She had encountered comparable statements during her military service. She comprehended the profound significance of the ceremonial language. These young men had indeed achieved something extraordinary, and they were on the brink of joining a brotherhood that would shape the remainder of their lives. Commander Rodriguez's gaze traversed the assembled audience as he continued his speech, commending the graduates' fortitude and the families who had provided them with assistance. The commander took great pride in his ability to identify his fellow soldiers, regardless of their attire, and something about the woman in the third row captivated his attention. Linda Harrison maintained a subdued demeanor that was characteristic of military veterans. However, there was a more specific aspect of her demeanor that elicited the commander's memory. A portion of the tattoo on her left forearm was revealed when she reached up to wipe away a tear of pride as Tyler's name was called, causing her sleeve to slightly draw back. Commander Rodriguez halted in the middle of his sentence. Despite the fact that the tattoo was only partially visible, the sight of it caused his pulse to race. Corpsman wings from a Navy infirmary. He immediately recognized the unit designations. Beneath the combat medical insignia, this was not your typical military tattoo. A corpsman of the Fleet Marine Force, who had served with special operations units, bore these markings. Commander Rodriguez had previously encountered that particular combination of insignia. Additionally, he was rescued by an individual who donned those markings during the most severe firefight of his deployment to Iraq in 2006. Commander Rodriguez's voice conveyed his surprise as he said, "Pardon me for a moment. I must recognize an individual in the audience?" Commander Rodriguez departed from the podium and proceeded to walk directly toward Linda Harrison, leaving the ceremony in a state of silence. The commanding officer approached a civilian woman in the bleachers, and the graduates, their families, and the other military personnel in attendance observed the situation in a state of perplexity. It was immediately apparent to Linda what had transpired. Commander Rodriguez had observed her tattoo and understood its significance. Her past had finally caught up with her at the worst possible moment during her son's graduation ceremony. After 8 years of successfully preserving her civilian anonymity, "Ma'am," Commander Rodriguez addressed Linda before halting. Linda hesitated, aware that standing would reveal her tattoo in its entirety and substantiate any suspicions the commander had harbored. Would you mind standing for a moment?
Completely silent as the full magnitude of Linda's service became clear to everyone present. This wasn't just a proud mother attending her son's graduation. This was one of the Navy's most decorated combat veterans, whose actions had saved the lives of the very SEALs who were now welcoming her son into their brotherhood. Tyler Harrison, still standing in formation, felt his understanding of his mother completely transform. The woman who had raised him as a single parent, worked long hours to provide for their family, and supported his dreams of military service was revealed as a combat hero whose reputation exceeded that of most of the SEALs graduating that day. Commander Rodriguez handed the microphone to Linda. "Doc, would you like to say something to the graduates?" Linda looked out at the 23 young men who had just completed SEAL training, including her own son. These were the inheritors of a tradition that she had served with honor, and they deserved to understand what that service really meant. "Gentlemen," Linda began, her voice carrying the authority that had once directed medical operations under enemy fire. "You've completed the hardest military training in the world. However, the completion of BUD/S is only the beginning. The physical challenges you have surmounted and the talents you have acquired are not the primary factors in becoming a SEAL. It pertains to the dedication you demonstrate toward the individual in your vicinity. It is a matter of being prepared to make any sacrifice, including your life, to guarantee that your comrades return home. You are becoming a member of a brotherhood that transcends generations. The personnel who support your missions, the families who make sacrifices so that you can serve, and the SEALs who serve before you. We are all members of the same crew." Linda gazed intently at Tyler. "Tyler, I am pleased of your accomplishments, but beyond that, I am proud of the individual you have evolved into. Your father would also be proud." She returned to the podium to address the entire class of graduates. "A portion of you will be deployed to engage in combat. Some of you will not. However, each of you will encounter instances in which you must determine between what is expedient and what is ethical. During those moments, it is important to remember that you are not only representing yourself, but also representing all individuals who have ever worn the trident. Ensure the well-being of one another. Bring each other home. And never forget that the most important mission is the person next to you." Linda returned the microphone to Commander Rodriguez and resumed her seat in the bleachers. However, the ceremony had been fundamentally altered. What had begun as a routine graduation had become a moment when past and present merged. A new generation of SEALs was welcomed into the Brotherhood by one of the most respected veterans of their community. As the formal ceremony concluded and the newly graduated SEALs were dismissed to join their families, Tyler Harrison approached his mother with a mixture of pride, amazement, and questions. "Mom," Tyler said, "why didn't you ever tell me?" Linda looked at her son, now officially a Navy SEAL, and smiled. "Because I wanted you to choose this path for your own reasons, not because of my service. Your decision to become a SEAL had to come from your heart, not from trying to live up to my reputation. But you're a legend. Commander Rodriguez said you saved his life. I did my job, Tyler. The same job you'll do if you ever find yourself in similar circumstances. Military service isn't about personal glory. It's about serving something bigger than yourself. How many lives did you save?" Linda was quiet for a moment. "I never kept count. That's not why we do it." Commander Rodriguez approached the mother and son, still visibly moved by the revelation of Linda's presence at the ceremony. "Doc, I need you to know something." The commander said, "Not a month goes by that I don't think about what you did that day in Ramadi. You did not merely save our lives." Tyler listened to this exchange with a growing understanding of his mother's military service. The woman who had raised him with quiet strength and determination was revealed as someone whose courage had been tested under the worst possible conditions and had never been found wanting. Commander Tyler asked, "What can you tell me about my mother's service?" Commander Rodriguez looked at Linda, who nodded permission for him to share details she had never discussed with her son. "Your mother served with some of the most elite SEAL teams during the heaviest fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. She was embedded with direct action units, which means she went on the most dangerous missions, raids, reconnaissance, counterterrorism operations. As a corpsman, her job was to keep everyone alive. But she did more than that. She became one of the most trusted members of every team she served with. SEALs knew that if they got wounded, Doc Harrison would move heaven and earth to save them. Her medical expertise was extraordinary, but what made her legendary was her willingness to risk everything for her teammates. She ran through enemy fire, performed surgery under combat conditions, and never left anyone behind. Tyler looked at his mother with new eyes. "Mom, how do you go from that to being a civilian nurse in San Diego?" Linda smiled. "This is because both positions involve the same objective, the provision of assistance to individuals who require it. Although the environment differs, the objective remains consistent. However, do you not yearn for the military, the camaraderie, and the sense of purpose?" "Tyler, I have never departed from the military community. I simply changed the way I served it. I provided care to wounded veterans in my capacity as a civilian trauma nurse. I assisted families in adjusting to the injuries of their loved ones. Active duty personnel and their families received medical attention from me. When you retire, the brotherhood does not conclude. It is simply a process of evolution." Linda found herself surrounded by SEALs from multiple generations who had heard about Doc Harrison, but never expected to meet her as the graduation celebration continued over the following hours. Young SEALs who had recently completed their training, veteran operators with decades of experience, and retired SEALs who had served during the same time period all approached to pay their respects. Master Chief Petty Officer Robert Chin, a veteran SEAL who served during the Iraq War, stated, "Doc Harrison, for 15 years, I have recounted anecdotes regarding your rescue in Romani. It is a privilege to finally meet you, Master Chief. You are causing me to feel embarrassed. I was merely fulfilling my duties." "No, madam. Your actions exceeded the call of duty. You established a standard for combat medicine that is still taught today. On what basis is this true?" SEAL medical training encompasses your evacuation protocols, communication protocols, and techniques for treating blast injuries under fire. Currently, you are the author of the definitive work on combat medicine for special operations. Tyler listened to these conversations with increasing amazement. His mother had not only served as a military medic. She was an innovator whose techniques were still being taught to the next generation of SEALs. Tyler addressed his mother in a quiet moment. "What was the reason for your decision to conceal this information from me?" Linda considered her response with great care. "Due to my desire for you to have a typical childhood. Children should not be subjected to the expectation that they must emulate their parents' military service, as military families already make significant sacrifices. However, were you not proud of your actions?" "Certainly, I was proud. However, I was more proud of the fact that I had successfully raised you to be a respectable individual. Being a good parent is not contingent upon possessing combat decorations. It is effective to be present, supportive, and loving. Did you believe that I was incapable of comprehending the truth? I believed that you were capable of handling any situation. However, I desire that your decision to join the military be independent and not influenced by an attempt to emulate my service record." Tyler began to comprehend his mother's reasoning as he nodded. "You desired for me to establish my own course of action." "Exactly. And you did. You opted for SEAL training due to your own character and determination, rather than my reputation. That increases the significance of your accomplishment, not diminishes it." Linda shared stories and insights with the new SEAL graduates as the day progressed, many of whom had never encountered a combat veteran with her level of experience and decorations. "Ma'am," asked one of Tyler's classmates, "what advice would you give to new SEALs about to deploy?" "Take care of your teammates. Learn from experienced operators. And remember that every person you encounter during deployment, whether friendly or hostile, is someone's son, daughter, husband, or wife. That perspective doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. How do you handle the stress of combat operations? Training, preparation, and absolute focus on your mission, but most importantly, you lean on your teammates. No one survives combat alone. What was the hardest part of your service?" Linda was quiet for a long moment. "Making life or death medical decisions with incomplete information and limited resources. Knowing that my choices would determine whether someone's family got their loved one back alive. How did you handle that responsibility?" "By never giving up. By using every skill I had, every piece of equipment available, and every second of time to give each patient the best possible chance of survival." As the sun set over Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, the graduation celebration began to wind down. Tyler and Linda found themselves alone for the first time since the revelation of her military service. "Mom, I need to ask you something." Tyler said, "Are you worried about me deploying now that I'm a SEAL?" Linda looked at her son, now wearing the same naval special warfare insignia that she had served alongside for 20 years. Of course, I'm worried. You're my son, and you're about to do one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. But I'm also proud. You've chosen to serve something bigger than yourself, and you've proven you have the character to do it well. What if something happens to me, like what happened to Dad? Linda's expression became serious. Tyler, your father died serving his country with honor. If something happens to you, which I pray it doesn't, you'll be dying for the same principles he believed in. That doesn't make it easier, but it makes it meaningful. The military doesn't guarantee safety. It guarantees purpose. You'll be risking your life to protect people who can't protect themselves and to ensure that your teammates come home safely. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Tyler hugged his mother, understanding for the first time the full magnitude of the sacrifices she had made, both during her military service and as a single parent raising him. Thank you, Mom, for your service, for raising me, and for letting me find my own way. Thank you for making me proud every day. 6 months later, Tyler Harrison deployed on his first SEAL mission, carrying with him the lessons learned from both his father's sacrifice and his mother's example of service under fire. Linda continued working as a civilian trauma nurse in San Diego, but her anonymity was forever changed by the graduation ceremony revelation. Word of Doc Harrison's presence in the civilian medical community spread quickly, and she found herself mentoring young Corps men, speaking at military medical conferences, and serving as a bridge between the veteran and civilian communities. I thought my military service was over when I retired, Linda told a group of transitioning veterans during a VA hospital presentation. But I learned that service never really ends. It just changes form. Whether you're treating wounded SEALs in Romani or car accident victims in San Diego, the mission is the same. Use your skills to save lives and take care of people who need help. The platform changes, but the purpose remains constant. Today, Linda Harrison continues serving her community as a civilian trauma nurse while maintaining her connections to the SEAL community that shaped her military career. Her son Tyler has successfully completed multiple deployments, carrying forward the family tradition of service with honor and distinction. The tattoo that revealed her identity at Tyler's graduation ceremony now serves as a bridge between her military past and civilian present, reminding everyone she meets that heroes often hide in plain sight, serving their communities with the same courage they once showed in combat. Courage isn't about the uniform you wear, Linda tells the young medical professional she mentors. It's about your willingness to risk everything to save someone else. That applies just as much in civilian hospitals as it does in combat zones. And every day as Linda cares for patients in her civilian role, she proves that the warrior spirit that earned her a Navy Cross in Romani continues to serve and protect in the trauma bays of San Diego. As true hero stories, we ask you, have you encountered someone like Linda Harrison in your community? A veteran with extraordinary achievements working quietly among us? Someone whose military service prepared them to continue saving lives and civilian careers. Share your thoughts in the comments because in every hospital, on every nursing shift, in every civilian workplace, there might be a guardian whose courage was forged in combat, who chose quiet service over recognition, and who continues protecting others one patient, one emergency, one act of healing at a time. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and share because real heroes often wear scrubs instead of uniforms. Treat patients instead of leading operations and prove that the greatest service is often the most humble.